and welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of strength and conditioning and pushing the limits of athletic performance with your host, Joe Ryan. Each week, we'll explore the strategies, tactics, and innovations that make athletes stronger, coaches smarter, and the sports we love even more thrilling. Whether you're a coach, an athlete, or just a fan of the game, we've got something for you. We'll be talking to some of the brightest minds in the industry, sharing their insights and experiences, and uncovering the methods behind the madness of high-performance sports. So tune in, turn up the volume, and let's get ready to learn, grow, and be inspired. This is the Moffitt Method Podcast.
Welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Ryan, and if you're serious about taking your team to the next level, you're in the right place. Each episode, I'll bring you into the huddle with some of the most respected coaches and leaders I've met throughout my career, sharing their stories, their strategies, and the knowledge bombs you can use to build a winning program. Before we get to work, if you're a first-time listener, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. It really helps us bring more great guests to you. Now, let's get to it. Today, we have Coach Reagan Willis. Coach Willis is from Central Louisiana and earned a bachelor's degree in science in athletic training from Louisiana State University, while gaining experience working with LSU soccer, cross country, track and field, and football. After graduation, Reagan served as a graduate assistant athletic trainer at Nicholls State University while completing her master's degree in higher education and administration with a concentration in leadership. During her time at Nicholls, she worked primarily with the football program before being hired on full-time. Most recently, Coach Willis was named head athletic trainer at University Laboratory School, where she leads the sports medicine department and works to promote the health and safety and success of all student athletes across U High's K-12 campus. Welcome in, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, God, it's great to have an old friend on and someone that we worked so closely with for so long.
For sure.
And I guess,
just a little close.
Yeah, I guess I can't even call you Coach Willis for much longer, right?
No,
What we got?
not unless they want to add powerlifting, but I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Right. So they call you Coach Willis or Coach Reagan over
They call me Mrs. Reagan.
there? Mrs. Reagan. Mrs. Reagan, I like that.
I try to stay away from the coach term unless I'm actually coaching.
Right. But, any adult to kids is coach sometimes. So
For sure.
for
I'll take it.
talking about Nicholls State, how about that win against UIW this weekend?
That was crazy. That was awesome. It
I'm
was
gonna
good to see the Colonels win.
go ahead and say, Norms was going crazy. Maybe downtown was a little crazy that night. I don't even know if they call it, what are they, Roxy's now? Roxy's,
Roxas,
whatever
and
it
the
is.
Goose.
Yeah, I haven't been down there in so long. Like the place used to be called the Library on the corner across the street from Peppers.
Mhm.
Is it still the Library when you were there?
No, the library's out.
Library's out.
closed.
Well, those are a lot of good times down there in Thibodeau, especially for the Thibodeau parade. So
For sure.
how's everything? Y'all had practice today, right?
Yeah, we did. We got a couple hours in, a couple hours of treatments too. Nothing crazy. Good
Yeah.
fly around.
Yeah, who do y'all got this week?
We have Denham at Parkview.
Dunham at Parkview. Parkview's having a big old jamboree, I guess. Here in Louisiana, we have these big jamborees, or sometimes, like at my school, I'm at Denham Springs High School, we jamboree against a district opponent where we'll play freshman, JV, then varsity all in one night. So each team gets about 2 quarters of playing time. So you see a lot of that. So they're going to have a little U High, number one player in the nation in his class, and U High at Dunham.
Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
Y'all have the number one player in the nation in your class, and at U High as well, in his respective class, just committed to LSU.
Yeah, we do. He's a good kid. Awesome to work with.
That's really awesome. So how's everything else going? Life's good. Transition's good. We talked about you leaving Nicholls back in May. You're heading into U High. This is kind of went through the summertime, school year started. Everything's transition was smooth and easy.
Yeah, it's definitely different going from like the college setting where like even if they aren't full adults, they think they're full adults, to K through 12 campus. And I think even the K through 12 campus is even different than being at Denham and coaching at Denham, because we have school and we have little kindergartners walking around that are up to my knee.
Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely growing. It's definitely learning every day. And we're getting better every day, which is
Yep.
the best part of it.
Yeah, definitely. For those that don't know, Coach Reagan coached with us at Denham for 4 years, 5 years?
5 years.
5 years. It was a long time. A lot of kids came through
Yep.
there, few state champions, all thanks to her. That was, I had no part in that at all. I didn't even freaking powerlift in high school. You're talking to like a quadruple time state champion right now.
It was only 3. I bombed out my sophomore year.
Only 3. She bombed out her sophomore year, but she was really good at it. She actually just got inducted into Louisiana's Hall of Fame this past year for powerlifting. So it's a big time accomplishment, for anyone, but as quick as she was able to get in. But we have some people in this state who aren't even in yet, and they've been done doing it for many, many years. So look, let's get to some questions here. Starting off, tell us how you became an athletic trainer. How'd you get into the world of it? What made you want to do it? Is this your first choice?
So I was just like majority of athletic trainers. I was the kid that got hurt while playing sports. So I spent some time in the training room in my high school career, and it was literally as simple as my junior year. I was in there getting treatment. And one of my teammates dared me to be a student trainer, and I did it. Then I ended up being like a student aide my senior year, and I really liked it and I really enjoyed it. And then it turns out I wanted to go out to LSU anyway, and they had a really good sports medicine program and athletic training program. So I just went ahead to LSU, and I really enjoyed it, really liked it. It came naturally to me, and it just kind of continues to come natural every day.
Now, your time at LSU, I think Coach Moffitt was there the whole time you were there, right?
He was there. I was there up until the transition. So my year at football, I worked with Coach Moffitt the first semester, and then the new strength staff came in the second semester.
Yeah, and then you moved on to Nicholls after that, right? After graduation?
Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You get into it in high school, everybody kind of finds what they want to do. At some point, everybody asks like, hey, here's a 15-year-old. Let me ask them what they want to do with the rest of their life. But you kind of found out at an early age. What's some back then or even 5 years ago, let's say, what's some advice you would have given your younger self on life or passion as an athletic trainer or things you maybe could have done better or anything like that? Just some sort of advice.
I would say I would give kids advice and like myself the advice of like, don't be afraid to try everything. I was the kid in high school. I never wanted to be like identified as one thing. So I never wanted to be just the athlete or just the person that was good in school. I wanted to try all the different things and then see what I was the best at, but also what I enjoyed the most. And then going on to look at a career and a profession, you want to see where you can have the biggest impact. So not only where you have the opportunity to make the biggest impact with the people you work with and the people you're around, but the one that has the biggest impact on you as well.
Yeah, some really, really solid advice. Not everybody, like I said, knows what they want to do at such an early age. I kind of getting into the strength world for me, was kind of did it as a senior project, wasn't sure what I was going to do, got a degree in something else, all came full circle to be back to where we're at right now, that what I originally wanted to do at 18 years old, I ended up doing, thanks to a few people involved in the Moffitt Method, and, Coach Matt Bruce over at Catholic High, but that's a story for a different day. So awesome. Talking along those lines, did you have growing up, whether it was in high school or whether it was in college at LSU or even at Nicholls, some mentors that may have helped you along the way that, got you to where you are now in this profession? Because again, you're still, to be a head athletic trainer at such a prevalent school in Louisiana, you're still, pretty young to be able to do that,
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have people that have helped me out and continue to help me out every day. The biggest thing about like your career and your journey is like you form a relationship with everyone you're with. And the thing about is no matter how much time you spend at a place, you need to make sure those relationships are solid enough where you can ask people for advice even when you're not there. I would say like the biggest people that have had an impact on my career is probably like Derek Calvert, who's one of the athletic trainers at LSU. He gave me the advice my senior year because it was kind of similar to the last year of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. In my last year of college, I didn't know what to do. I just knew I wanted to go to grad school and I wanted to stay close to home. And he said, you can go do anything for 2 years. And I said, okay. So then the people at Nicholls called me and they said, hey, you want to come to Nicholls and work for 2 years? And I was like, yeah, I can work really hard. And that's how I ended up in Thibodeau. So he definitely had a huge impact on me. My year at football with LSU, that was also Bo Lowry's first year at LSU. And just seeing the way he transitioned and the way he worked every day, he was definitely one of those. He was our boss, but he was one of those bosses that made you want to work harder because of the way he worked. So it was definitely great to be around him. And like, he was a good example of like what a leader, what I thought and think what a leader should be. So those are probably two people
Yeah, kind of lead by example people that,
for sure.
and I love those type of leaders. You see them everywhere, in every facet of life, whether it's in, a traditional white collar workplace or the blue collar workplace. I still consider us in the school system as blue collar workers. It's long hours. It's, sometimes difficult. You're not just coach. You're not just athletic trainer. You're not just,
Mhm.
teacher or psychologist. Sometimes, father figure, mother figure, things like that. A lot of the times that paycheck is kind of being able to mentor young athletes or young students and kind of show them the ways and how you should present yourself, represent your last name really is what it all boils down to. And I think a lot of us get those mentors and, it sounds just like you did. Talking about, just along those lines too, we always can't be work, 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 work. You'll go insane. I mean, absolutely, people call it burnout. You go insane, you get out of the profession. I've seen people that they get a year in and they're gone, or they get, 15 years in and they're just, I can't do this anymore. And 8 years in or whatever it is, people get burned out. So you got to have hobbies outside of this, personally. I mean, I'm 35 years old, but the one hobby I have is playing freaking college football on the video game. I know that sounds childish, and I know that outside of hanging out with kids and hanging out with family and the people you work with are really your best friends, especially in this world. You have longtime friends that you'll never forget, maybe one or two of them from high school, a few from college, but your best friends are the people you work with day in and day out. And outside of them, I'm not ashamed to say it. My only hobby is I get on that friggin' Xbox and I try and win the college football playoff every year and go undefeated. And, you can spend hours on there. And I didn't play all the way until COVID. COVID happened and it was like, I ain't got nothing else to do. I'm getting paid to sit at home. Let's play some games. So talking about hobbies, I mean, do you, outside of work, and I know as an athletic trainer, I mean, y'all spend some freaking time up there with all how many sports y'all have
For
at
sure.
UI?
I think it's something crazy, like 17 high school
17.
sports, but then you have to also consider middle school and elementary.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
time for hobbies for you is probably pretty far and few. But I mean, outside of it, do you have anything that you like to do? You still kind of pump iron a little bit, lift a little bit, go running.
I'll be honest with you, for the last 5 years, coaching powerlifting was my hobby.
Yeah.
It
So
was my escape from
yeah.
having to actually take care of kids, and not saying I didn't take care of our lifters too, but just escape the training room and get out. But now I would say I dabble in a little bit of working out, but I'm not going to compete
Yeah,
or
exactly.
anything.
Nobody's going
But
to
I
compete.
try to work out when I can, early in the morning, definitely not late at night. I enjoy my sleep, but I would say that's my hobbies as of right now.
Yeah. No, that's always fun, and shoot, with marriage right around the corner for you, your hobbies turn into your spouse's hobbies turn into your hobbies sometimes,
For
so
sure.
some of that changes, as you move on and transition in life and, things like that. So I get it. I definitely get it. So let's talk about work day.
Yeah.
We just talked about, it's crazy. You have a K through 12 school, you're dealing with middle school kids, you're dealing with high school kids, you got 17 roughly sports on campus. That's from everything from swim to football to tennis to, you know, softball to everything in between. You have all that to worry about. Typical day for you. What's it look like? We're early riser, you said, you like to get things done in the morning. We're good to go. What happens?
Yeah, so this change in, like, moving from UI to Nicholls, my schedule got absolutely flipped. Cause Nicholls, we did everything in the morning. UI, obviously, things majority go on in the afternoon, but right now at UI, we have cross country first hour, then there's a break where we're not set up like Denham where we have athletics every single hour. We have they're in school, they're in class, and then our seniors get out around roughly 12:30, which is around lunch where we see majority of our kids, but they don't have a long lunch. So we literally have like 20 minutes to work with kids. And then after that, we're working predominantly with our seniors who are out of school. And then we work with our other athletes once seventh hour starts and after school. So seventh hour is pretty crazy because everyone finally gets their athletic hour. Lunch is pretty crazy because a lot of our sports don't practice and work out and stuff on campus. They go to off-campus places like Baton Rouge Soccer and Traction and the Cub Complex, which is on campus, but I count it as off campus because it's 10 minutes away from the school. So we're not directly there. So it's just a lot of things going on in a small amount of time. So you got to make sure you plan well and like you're getting the most out of the little bit of time you can with kids.
Yes. How, with your seniors coming in at lunchtime, that's got to be difficult because especially being in a school where you could kind of have, I don't want to call it checks and balances, but those younger kids need to learn from the older kids a lot of time,
Hmm.
how to carry yourself, how to practice, how to work out. You come in as an eighth grader or a freshman and you're just real wide eyed and you're just, what's going on here? Where do I go? How do I get here? How do I do that? How do I handle this situation? Do y'all run into some of that over there where, maybe it's a little bit longer for those younger kids to grow up and kind of, all right, now these kids can be, and I know you've seen a small sample, not a very large sample yet, but now these kids are ready to be leaders and these kids are ready to take on more responsibility.
Right. I feel like it's almost the opposite of that because it is a K through 12 campus. Because even though you have your seniors getting off of campus early, they come right back for athletics. So, like, I'll give you the example of like our quarterback crew. Our quarterback is a senior, so he leaves early, but we got with him and we are like, hey, we need to be doing some sort of arm care maintenance that's not just an ice bag and stuff like that. So then we talked to the other quarterbacks about it, and we have an 11th grade quarterback as well, 10th or ninth grade quarterback, but we also have an eighth grader who's playing JV. So we have what's called like quarterback club, and the senior took upon itself to invite the other quarterbacks, and they come in 3 days a week and they do quarterback club, which is really arm care. So I feel like our seniors do well at leading the other kids, and like they're still together during practice and they're still together during team activities and stuff like that. Um, yeah,
That's awesome that they'll come in and take that responsibility. You don't see that very often with kids. That they'll come in, they'll
yeah,
take that responsibility amongst themselves. Hey, we got to get this done because it's important. It's going to
right.
help us either win games or if we don't do it, possibly lose games. And that's a big time. So let's talk a little bit about that because that's a great thing that not a lot of people do. Arm care, is that something you handle? Is that something that strength coach or position coach or head coach, or you're kind of in the same boat as a strength and conditioning coordinator that each individual sport coach is almost your boss, outside of, the head of your school or the athletic director, but each kind of sport is kind of, you know, y'all work hand in hand to take and make sure that these kids are taken 100% care of. So is that something that you handle or they handle, or how does that work?
So we like to run each sport individually because they are individual sports. Football specifically, and like all of our sports, they've been very supportive of everything. Jack's our assistant athletic trainer. Jack and I have brought up to them about anything we can do to prolong athlete health or help them make it deeper in the season or help prevent injuries. All our coaches have been bought in, and we kind of head all that up. After that, it's kind of like on us for finding the time. So like we wouldn't do it per se as like, okay, instead of doing the team workout, you're going to do our workout. It's going to be in addition to the team workout. You're also going to do this. And we're planning time before, during, and after based off when it would be the best to do maybe like soft tissue on them versus like J bands versus like plyo balls. So I would say we definitely dictate it the most. Jack's kind of my arm care specialist because he worked baseball at LSU. So I got him in my back pocket, but he definitely heads up that.
I mean, shoot, national champions. I mean, what more can you ask for? Whether he was there or
Yeah,
not. You're talking about the most historic baseball program in the country, and what better person to
right.
have by your side to help with some of that arm care? Because what a lot of people out there, it is 2025. Baseball and quarterbacks. Baseball players and quarterbacks. A lot of that same arm care is done. I get with our baseball coaches all the time, like, hey, help me out with this arm care on top of our athletic trainers because we're blessed to
Right.
have 3 on campus full time that are all teachers there. But what are some arm care we can do? Because you're taking care of those baseball guys to where, and giving them enough rest that they're only pitching every few days, and they have a pitch count. It's the same
Right.
thing as a quarterback. While I do still believe, quarterbacks, pitchers, baseball players, they do need to hit upper body hard. It's not
For
just a
sure.
thing to where we're just ignoring the upper body. When they get blessed enough to become professionals, maybe, that's a different ball game because those guys have many, 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 many miles on them. So,
Right.
kind of getting that body strong, that upper body strong, everything between from muscles to joint care to their flexibility, their mobility of muscles, everything that matters. So
Right.
that's awesome. I love to see some good arm care with a quarterback. When we hit our quarterbacks in our workouts, like if we'll go, I'm a creature of habit, just like anyone else, where we have like get big Thursdays because it's our last
Mhm.
workout the day before a game. And, the kids at the end love, 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 love to hit buys and tries. But who doesn't, especially
Right.
those football kids, what 15, 18-year-old boy doesn't like to hit buys and tries? That's why I put an upper body emphasis at the end of our weeks. But our quarterbacks, instead of doing buys and tries, they'll do all their arm care during that time, for that workout specifically. Other days they have different time to do it, whether they come in before or after, very similar to what y'all do. So that's real awesome. That's some really, really good stuff. So, you kind of touched on a little bit how you communicate with the kids and, about injuries and, and their recovery process and taking a little bit of accountability for themselves as far as showing up and wanting to get recovered, not just, okay, I went to treatment one time and I'll be better. It's no big, I mean,
Yeah.
I was just as guilty of it. I had chronic shoulder and ankle injuries because I went to treatment one time. I put my ankle in ice for 20 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it was. And see you later. I'll be good for the rest of my career. So, talking about injuries and recovery, how do you communicate that to the kids?
Yeah, I think our biggest thing is getting the buy-in, not only from the kid, but all the stakeholders in the situation. So it's very easy for us to, if we get little Johnny over here who has the ankle sprain to buy into treatment and rehab, okay, he's likely to show up every day. But then if we can get Johnny and his parents to buy in to what we're doing and trying to provide in the training room, then he's more likely. But if we can get Johnny, his parents, and the coach to buy in, like, that kid's gonna be there every day, and, like, we're solid. So I would say the biggest thing is just communication, and, like, that's the thing I try to tell people. What athletic trainers do, it's never a secret. If you think it's a secret, like, something's going on,
You're living in the
but when it
past or yeah.
yeah, yeah, you're living in the past, and I think the biggest thing is, like, you have to realize everyone who's a part of the decision making and, like, the conversation, they have a unique point of view and something that is contributing to that kid's care or that kid's ability to play. So even circling back to the arm care stuff, like, it's not just us coming up with some bands, like, it's us pairing that with the bands plus what the coaches are planning on them throwing, plus, like, does the coach want the kid to throw on a Thursday or a Saturday, like that kind of stuff, and it all plays a role. So I think the biggest thing that comes with that is just like communication among our parties and getting everyone bought into like what we can do.
Right. So do y'all have a specific strength coach or do y'all just have the head coach or, and
Um,
that's a lot of schools, that's how it works. I've been at schools where it wasn't a specific strength coach, where it was just, here's the head coach who has a tremendous amount of knowledge in the weight room, which is prevalent in a lot of places that they don't necessarily call the strength coach because, hey, who's higher on the totem pole, the head coach or the strength
right,
coach, So
right.
do you work closely with that person, whoever it may be? Hey, this is what's going on with this kid. How can we get stronger? How can we avoid injuries? How can we tweak certain things to make sure that both of our jobs go a lot smoother? You don't have kids injured and we don't have kids coming to the training room for stim this and stim that. And
Yeah,
we got lower back and, there's a little bit of, I noticed this with kids and I'm sure we were the same way growing up to an extent, but kids getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
hmm,
There's a level to that, and it's at all facets and all levels of any game. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Your healthiest day, our head coach says it all the time, the healthiest day you're going to have is the first day.
right,
You'll feel the best your first day of any sport, any practice, you'll feel the best of that season. And after that, you'll never feel the same, whether it's pains and aches and muscles and constant recovery and, talking about that recovery, those kids, they don't realize how important sleep is.
for
You know,
sure.
that's sleeping, eating right, eating Takis and drinking a Diet Pepper for lunch is not ideal if you want the fuel to make it through practice and to make it through 4 days of practice leading up to a game, 2 games a week, if you're a basketball or softball, baseball player, sometimes more than that. But, do you kind of work with those people to kind of avoid some of these injuries and help get stronger? Nothing's preventable, obviously. Can we
Right.
reduce it? Yeah. I mean, you can reduce it, but what's going to happen is going to happen. It can't be broken bones. I mean, that's, just, it happens, but some of those things happen. So,
Right. I would say, once again, every sport at UI is unique, so you gotta look at each sport individually. I would say football in a lot of our larger sports, it's kinda like you alluded to, like, that the coach on the staff has, like, a lot of knowledge in strength and conditioning, so they program their own team, and we sit down with them, and we're like, "Okay, these are the injuries that are most common in your sport. What are we doing to be able to prevent that? Like, what are we doing in the weight room to be able to prevent that?" Then you have other sports on the other end of the spectrum where they might not have a coach that's confident in the ability to program for the weight room or instruct the kids on how to do things in the weight room. So those teams will go off campus to like a D1 or a traction. But that's how we do strength and conditioning. It's different everywhere.
oh, yeah.
What was the other part of the question?
Just as far as, avoiding injuries, you basically answered it, how they get stronger, how they avoid injuries. Do y'all work hand in hand together? Or,
Yeah,
do you help
we
provide some of
definitely
that knowledge to them? That because in my job being the strength coach of the whole school, I like to know, like, okay, what are our current injuries? Like, what are we seeing? What's the trend? Because
yeah,
whether anybody wants to admit it or deny, there's a trend every year. It seems like, yeah, like this is the year
for
of the
sure.
hamstring. This is the year of the shoulder. This is the year of the ankle. Like it's very trendy. I think, in my experience, right now we had a little spell of not hamstring pulls, but just little tweaks. And, you
Mhm.
know, I try and find ways. How can we get better? How can we do things? And, anything Boo Snyder's wrote is a wealth of knowledge,
Of
like,
course.
I mean,
Yeah,
like Boo has probably forgotten more than I know.
yeah,
It's anything that he writes is like golds. You know, we see that often, and I like to chalk it up, or at least I like to hope that we're just faster this year is why we're getting tweaks. I hope that we got them fast enough this off season,
yeah,
this summer, that we're just seeing tweaks. We'll see. But, seeing some of that, like, does that come into play where you're like, hey, coach, we can do this a little bit better? We kind of talked previously, and I asked you
right.
about this. Like you talk about mentors and people you can talk to. I mean, shoot, I come to you for a lot of stuff. We talk about the no sweat
Yeah,
Wednesday stuff. We're doing that this year. That's part of that injury prevention, getting the central nervous system to go to sleep, waking it back up. I keep saying prevention, reduction.
right, right. I would say definitely with modifications, the biggest thing with kids and student athletes is getting them to understand you can be injured and you're hurt, but you can still do stuff. Like, very rarely is there a situation where we should be at complete rest, and very rarely is there a situation we should be at complete rest and then jump straight back into football practice the next day. So we definitely work hand in hand with our coaching staff and the people in the weight room and our student athletes, getting them to understand, like, okay, you might have a shoulder injury, so, like, you might not do X, Y, and Z in the weight room, but instead of X, Y, Z, you can do this instead. That'll still hit the same thing, and it won't make your injury worse. I will say, like, we've been very blessed so far with all my conversations with coaches. One of the first ones I had on UI's campus, my coach said, he said, "We have a way we do things. Everything has a plan, and there's a goal for the plan. But if you can present me research that says what you want will help the plan," he goes, "I'll do whatever you want." So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you have to have a why as to why you do things. And then after that, you have to have buy-in, which
Absolutely.
obviously everyone's going to be hesitant, but if you're able to present the research and like why and then scientific knowledge of like why this is going to help and how this is going to help us get better and ultimately help us win championships, as long as you get buy-in after that, you should be good.
And yeah, absolutely. You have to have the why. I'm a nerd for numbers, and I'm a nerd for
Hmm.
like, here's the why. Here's why this works. Here's why it's going to help us get better. And here's why everything happens. I'm a nerd for that. And I'm real big on that too, is if we can get a why of why it makes us better, well, hey, whatever it does to help us win, we're going to do it. Whether
Right.
that's a big thing that I sold this year to the kids and to the coaches is, we'll get, kids will have big protein intakes all during the off season. Well,
Hmm.
you can still do that in season, guys. Like you actually probably need it more because you're burning so many more calories and you're not, in season working out, and even summer working out isn't the same as winter working out.
Right.
I consider winter as we're putting on that winter coat. We're going into hibernation, we're not running a lot. We're lifting and lifting and lifting. And then when spring hits and when summer hits, you're running a lot more. And that's where you really, really need to start that intake of protein and getting good calories. Again, not eating Takis and Diet Dr.
For
Peppers,
sure.
your
For
water
sure.
intake. So some of
One
that.
of our biggest like assets going off of that is the foundation, they partnered with Eat to Win, which is like a mobile nutrition app.
I think I've heard of
And
that.
dude, it's awesome. It's awesome. Like, it's a wellness tracker, sleep tracker, calorie tracker, weight tracker, anything you can think to like nutrition and health and wellness, it tracks. It makes student athlete individual profiles with like individual goals. So I'll tell you, like, you think a normal human needs 2,000 calories in a day. And then you're like, okay, they're an athlete, so they need a little bit more. We have one of our kids, we sat down and did the calculation on it. He needs to be eating 5,400 calories a day.
I
And
wish I
yeah,
could.
right,
I can't do
right,
that anymore. I eat 5,400
right,
calories and it's gluttonous and it's frowned upon.
right. And he's a very massive human with a very high activity level. And if he wants to maintain his weight and not cramp up and prevent injuries and all the things, this is what he has to do. But like the biggest thing is the education piece of that. So like once we got him locked in on like, okay, you need to eat more. And it's like, okay, well, you need to drink more too. Like, I need you to do this too. And then even if you eat well and you drink well, if you don't sleep right, you're probably going to cramp as like also. So
Right.
like you have to get the younger kids and the student athletes to buy in. It's a multifaceted thing.
Yeah, no, and talking about some of those calories and eating all that stuff, and they don't realize how important it is, especially because hey, everybody wants to go D1 these days, right? And they don't
Yeah.
realize what it takes to get there. But you talk
Right.
about something right there about talking to these kids and that specific kid that this is where you need to be to get better. That's got to be rewarding. So, kind of talking a little bit about that, what's the most rewarding part of your job specifically as an athletic
I would
trainer?
say Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is the relationships you're able to have with the kids. It's kind of part of the reason that I like stepped away from college because of the whole transfer portal thing. You only get to know kids for a year or two. Like you'll get those few kids that you get for 3 or 4, but majority of them are coming and leaving. So I think the high school aspect of it, of like getting to know those kids for 4 years, or on our campus, the potential to know a kid from kindergarten through 12th grade. And
Right.
then like you get the opportunity to see him sign a D1 scholarship, like that has to be super rewarding. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's a unique, not many people get that. That's a unique thing that you can experience. It's almost like your own kid growing up from,
Yeah,
4 or 5 years old to being 18 years old and moving on in life. And, while that's rewarding, I'm sure that's got to be some sentiment to it too. I get all sentimental when it's 4 years that a kid's in and out, or, some kids I deal with from sixth grade moving forward, but it's like, I get sentimental for that. I can't imagine watching a kid go from kindergarten all the way through, that's got to be a totally different ball game, So talking about that, everything we've talked about in this episode, there's been so much knowledge dropped and so much of why you do what you do and how you do it. Why is it important that high schools have an athletic trainer?
Yeah, I would say immediate is just having like medical personnel available on the campus, but also during athletic events. Like injuries are a part of athletics, and like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're going to happen. So having medical personnel available to your kids and your coaches, and like having that resource there, that's what I would say is the biggest asset of having one, is the emergency management of it. If you're looking from our point of view, we have kids that are going to go college, D1, D2, D3, and AIA the whole way. So you're educating them at a young age of what all an athletic trainer can do and what a resource can be, and how we can help them reach their best potential, not only as an athlete and as a person. But for those other kids who aren't potentially going to college, you're just instilling healthy habits that they're gonna have for the rest of their life.
Right. And it sounds like you're holistically building these athletes. It's not just,
For
hey,
sure.
athletics are a thing, it's the full part of athletics. It's, your character or your schooling, your athletic part of everything, Not everybody goes on to play college sports.
Right.
Neither of us are naive to that one. Not everybody does it. It's very few and far between these days, especially like you said, that transfer portal thing kind of gets some of these kids from being recruited at a high school because they need people that need to make an impact immediately. The days
Right.
of seeing a kid get redshirted and maybe in 2 years they'll be a starter and in 3 years they'll be an All-American. Doesn't really happen that much anymore. So, having those rewards and having the knowledge to be able to give those kids that, whether they move on to athletics or just in life, you're holistically building them. And that's why, having that athletic trainer on campus, I'll add to it is very important,
For sure.
So that's my important questions. Something new we're doing with this revamp is kind of asking some fun questions for you. Our big one that I want to ask, and you won't be the only one. If you were stranded on a deserted island, what's one piece of weight equipment you would have and why?
Like weight room equipment, like anything that's in a weight room.
Anything's in a weight room. It can be in the athletic training room that's doubles as in the weight room. It can be, but what's one piece of equipment that, you have to have? It's the only thing you have. And it can only be one of it. You can't say, oh, I want a set of dumbbells. Like, it can be one.
I would go with like the battle ropes.
The battle rope.
Like you can use ropes for a lot. You cut out. What'd you say?
I said that's one I haven't heard from anyone. I've asked a few people this question just face to face, and battle ropes is not one that I've heard from anyone.
I feel like you can do so much with a rope. I watch a lot of Alone. You can tie a lot. You can start a fire. You could build a shelter.
So it's multi-purpose. It's not just the workout part of things. It's having it multi-purpose.
Heck no, you're trying to survive.
We looked at this in a totally different way. I looked at it as, what piece of workout equipment do I need to actually work out? But it's cool to see. That's what I want to know. I want to see, like, all right, where's your mind at with this?
Athletic trainers, it's always life or death.
Hey, and that's a great perspective to have, So that's my one random question of the day. I can't thank you enough for coming on this episode. I know that, like we've heard, your schedule's super busy. You got a lot going on, 17 sports, hundreds of kids you got to take care of, coaches you have to work with, transition to a new job, started the school year. I mean, I'd over and list.
Yeah.
On top of that, getting married, ready for a wedding, we're not far from that. As far as it may seem, you're not far from getting married. That's great.
Yeah, I'm going to the state championship.
I hope y'all do make it. That would be great,
I hope we do too. Doing everything we can to get there.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, I thank you again for stopping in today. It means the world to me as former colleagues and as friends that we can make this happen, and you can be a part of this for us over here at the Moffitt Method.
For sure. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening today. If you would, please give us a follow on any of our social medias, give our podcast a follow, subscribe, leave us reviews, tell us how we're doing. We look forward to having more guests on in the future, and we hope that you stop in.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Moffitt Method Podcast. We hope you found today's discussion enlightening and empowering as you continue your journey in sports and strength and conditioning. Before you go, make sure to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where we share more tips, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. Just search for Moffitt Method Podcast and hit that follow button. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening platform. That way, you'll never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd love it if you could leave us a review or share this podcast with a friend. It really helps us out. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, the key to success is just one more workout away. Until next time, stay strong and stay inspired.